The Adventurer token archetype was made to be your adventure. It is supposed to embody your interaction and your playing the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At previous YCSs, there have been ways to create your own token, and so Konami wanted to create an archetype specifically focused around a single token, not even multiple, but just a single token, and its utilization with a bunch of support cards to help you, your friends, and whatever else you have on your token to win you a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And so in that concept, in that style, Konami has created an archetype that's one of the most splashable, most versatile engines in the game. It's not Orcus combo kind of bullshit, but it is fairly strong and it does work in the main deck instead of your extra deck, so it's not like it's completely generic. We're going to go to the Adventurer archetype and everything this archetype can do for you now. The strong decks can use this, decks like Sword Soul, Phantom Knight. The mid-range decks like Virtual World can use this, Lunalight can use this, and even the weak decks, the decks you weren't even thinking about, like Nordics, can use this archetype. There's a lot that this archetype can do, and we're not going to go into specific decks in this video. We will go into the decks that this engine can give more versatility and give more utility to later, but for now, let's just figure out what the fuck this archetype actually does. All right, so here we are for the final part of Grand Creators, the Adventurer deck. And yeah, I say deck, I mean more of an engine. Like, to have a deck that's focused around having this one token, but then only having one card that actually brings the token out, that's not really a deck. That's more of just like one card and a bunch of support cards. It's literally just bring out a token and then you pretty much just play monkey, you know? It's like you monkey flip your Griffin Rider or you monkey bounce with the Draco back. There's really nothing else so significant to this deck. There are a few other cards in the archetype do some things that are interesting, but for the most part, everyone that you see using the Adventurer engine is going to be using just 5 cards from the engine, and they're going to be using it more as like a starter for their deck. What we're looking at here is 2 monsters and 3 spell cards. So the first monster, the one that you've probably already seen, if you look up the price for this card, it might make you sort of question if you want to play this engine or not, but this engine does make a lot of decks more viable. It's only going to define the format for the next 2 months, so I don't know, maybe you might want to invest a little bit into it. Here we go, we got Water Enchantress of the Temple, and so if you control the token, summon her from hand, you can banish her to add the card that summons the token from your deck or grave to your hand. You really don't need to play 3 copies of Right. If you don't want to, you can stick to 2 to 3 if you're going to max up on the Water Enchantress. It's really personal preference whether you want to use one or the other. Third effect, not really going to come up because she places the field spell, but both field spells do absolutely nothing if we're being completely honest here. Wandering Griffin Rider is a card that I think is absolutely insane because if you control no monsters or if you control the token, you can special summon it from your hand. And then when a Carter effect is activated while you control the Adventurer token, you get to shuffle it back into the deck, and if you do, negate the activation and destroy the card, and you can only use each effect once per turn. As you'll see, it's not really going to be too hard to actually make this happen, right? The main card of the archetype or the deck is the Rite of Aramesia, right? You can't play this engine unless you have this card. So whether you max out on this card or you max out on the card that searches it is really up to you. And this is going to be the most significant way for you to actually utilize these cards in your deck. If you don't already control the Adventurer token, then you summon the Adventurer token. And then if you don't control Fateful Adventure, you get to place Fateful Adventure from your deck face up in your spawn trap card zone. The only contingency, and you just can't activate the effects of monsters that you normally summon during that turn. There are so many decks that just don't really care about their normal summon these days. And so the card it places on the field, the Fateful Adventure, it has a paragraph of text. The effect that we're going to focus on, it has 2 main effects, right? During your main phase, you can add a monster that mentions the Adventurer token from your deck to your hand, and you don't even have to have the token on field to activate this. You just add a card that mentions the Adventurer token, and then you send one card from your hand to the grave. And then if a monster is normal or special summon, you can take one equip spell that mentions the Adventurer token and add it to your hand, or you can equip it to the token itself. It's really up to you. It also has a sort of relevant effect. Its very first one is that once per turn, the first time a monster you control equip with an equip card will be destroyed by battle. It's not destroyed. I guess it comes up. I don't think it's going to that often. I mean, if you equip your token with your equip spell from its 3rd effect, I guess, yeah, your token gets a 1 per turn battle protection. So they can't even swing. They have to swing over it twice just to get rid of it. Off of one Rite of Aramesia, you get 1 free token. You get the Fateful Adventure, and then off of Fateful Adventure, you get to add one of the 2 significant Adventurer token monsters from deck to hand. And what most people people will be doing because of the third effect is that instead of immediately searching for the monster, you activate Rite of Aramesia, you normal summon the monster of your own deck. Like let's say you're playing Phantom Knights, you would normal summon your own Torn Scales. You wouldn't activate Torn Scales effect, you get to add the Draco back from deck to hand, and then you use Faithful Adventurer's second effect, search your monster, whichever one, and then you discard the equip spell card. And the reason why that's so good is because the equip spell card, when it's sent to the grave, you get to equip it to the adventure token you control. So you pretty much just found a loophole into Faithful Adventurer's the -1 that you have to do to actually search. And instead, now you got your Draco back on your token, right? And Draco back once per turn, if it's equipped to a non-effect monster, so even if it's equipped to a normal monster, Ignite players rise up, I guess. You can target a card your opponent controls and then just send it back to the hand. And it's any card, it's not monster, it's not spell, it's not trap. So if they have the skill drain, they have Mystic Mind, that shit gets bounced. Engine is really good at breaking boards as well as making them. So that's why you're gonna see this engine really be used a lot, because the whole thing just works off of one card. So if you have Rite of Aramesia and any monster from your deck that you don't need its normal summon effect to activate, you can make that shit work in this deck. The next two cards from the archetype that we're going to go over is the Magical Warrior of the Relics. Now, not every deck is going to use this card. I think most people are going to gloss over this card because it's not very... Nobody really cares about a level 4 warrior unless you're playing some rank 4 deck like I guess Exorcisters or Utopia. Even Infernoble could probably use this shit. But yeah, so if you control an Adventurer token, you can special summon it from your hand. It can't attack unless you control the Adventurer token. So essentially, if he attacks and he's still on field at the end of the battle phase, you get to set one trap from your deck. One trap that mentions Adventurer token. What trap card could that potentially be? It's the Breath of Resurrection. And if you control an Adventurer token, you get to special summon 2 monsters from your hand and or your graveyard. Any 2 monsters with different names, but banish them when they leave the field. Then you can equip one spell card that mentions Adventurer token, and that's can. You don't have to equip the equip spell card from your hand or graveyard to one monster you control. And that's one monster. It doesn't even have to be the monster that you summoned. So you can just put it back on the token. You can just put your equip spell back on the token. I want you to think about this. If you're going second, right, you start up your engine, you rev up those friars, Rite of Aramesia, Faithful Adventure, then you normal summon out whatever monster from the deck that you're using, equip the Draco back bounces back whatever, like a skill drain or a Mystic Mind. From there, you get your Magical Warrior of the Relics, searching off your Journey of Destiny, and then Journey of Destiny puts back whatever, and then Journey of Destiny sends the equip spell to grave, and then the equip spell attaches back to the Adventurer token. At this point, you're allowed to pretty much go into whatever combo that it is. And the cool thing about Magical Warrior of the Relics is that you don't need to control the Adventurer token to resolve his second effect, although you will need the Adventurer token to resolve the trap card. So if they do somehow remove your token and you still have Faithful Adventure, next turn you can get another Water Enchantress, mill it for Faithful Adventure, search Rite of Aramesia, summon out another token, and then boom, Breath of Resurrection will be live. It's pretty strong. Like whether you're going first or going second, this is more of a going, well, Magical Warrior's a going second card, but whether you're going first or going second, this engine has a lot of versatility in how it can be used. It can revive significant monsters that maybe get KO'd, or it can give you a constant stream of resources. This is like one of the strongest generic engines that you'll ever see in the game. And there are some decks that will never be able to play it because they have to use their normal summon. But if you really don't rely on your normal summon, this is it. Like, I don't want to see any excuse for you not to play it. Like, Pendulum decks are going to thrive because of this engine. You know, like, I cannot see a Pendulum deck failing if they're playing this engine. The only way that it could brick is if you draw Draco back, or one of either Draco back, Griffin Rider, or your Magical Warrior without the Adventurer token. But most people aren't going to use Magical Warrior, if any, unless you're playing Infernoble. Griffin Rider, unless you're playing Bird Up, you're only going to be playing one, so if you see it, whatever. And Draco back, let's say you're playing something like Sword Soul. It can equip to any non-effect monster. So when you summon that token, that Sword Soul token, that water type Sword Soul token, you still get to equip Draco back to it and bounce something to hand. Even though it's not going to be as useful as it could have been, that's still a 1-for-1 that you just got off of just summoning a token. It's too free not to play it. And because it's so free, like, you're probably going to see a lot of this in tournaments, especially high level tournaments. Maybe locals, people may not be able to afford this stuff, so you might not see it as often. But high level tournaments, you're going to see a lot of this engine. For the second half of this video, I've decided to give you guys ways that you can counter this particular engine. Starting off with everyone's new favorite hand trap, because E-Telly went to 3, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. So Ghost Ogre can stop this engine at 2 points. The Faithful Adventurer is already face up on the field by the time it can search a monster. It doesn't search on activation, and as a matter of fact, it can't search on activation because Rite of Aramesia puts it on board. So Ghost Ogre, you can Ghost Ogre the Faithful Adventurer as soon as they try to search a monster from their deck to their hand. And Ghost Ogre being able to be summoned off of E-Tele makes it probably the best option out of all these next few options that I'm going to tell you. But Ghost Ogre also stops this engine at another point, and you're going to be like, yeah, it can stop the Draco back from bouncing something back to hand. And I would be like, yes, it does. But there's something even better than that. The Wandering Griffin Rider. Griffin Rider has to return itself back to deck to properly negate any activation of an effect, right? So it has to be able to bounce itself back into the deck. It doesn't bounce as cost, it bounces on resolution, which means if you have something that removes Griffin Rider from the field, it cannot negate your card or effect. So Ghost Ogre being able to discard or destroy itself on field to stop the Griffin Rider has single-handedly just become one of the strongest hand traps of this format because it can stop the Griffin Rider. And I'm not going to say Griffin Rider's a bad card, right? Like, this is like I'm not saying any of this shit's bad, you know? That doesn't, just because it has flaws, just because you can Mystical Space Typhoon a Mystic Mind doesn't mean it's a bad card. Well, I mean, Mystic Mind's a bad card, but more in like whoever plays it has no morals rather than it's an actual bad, you know, card. Like, there are actual bad cards out there, you know, like Moki Moki. Ghost Ogre single-handedly says, fuck this engine, fuck what you're thinking, and fuck whatever board you're trying to build, board presence you're trying to get with this adventurer token shit. That's what Ghost Ogre says, and Ghost Ogre is really easy to bring out. The next one, which everyone has started using since last year because of Sword Soul, is Token Collector. They can't get that adventurer token on the field, they can't use any of their effects. This is essentially the Adventurer Token Floodgate. Now, it is a level 4 monster. It's really easy to bring out if you're using a card like Beatrice, or if you're using a card like Foolish Burial, where you can just put it in the grave, because Token Collector, when a token is special summoned, it can summon itself from either the hand or the graveyard. It's allowed to pretty much bring itself back to the field from anywhere, and as I'm reading it, it doesn't even get banished if it's summoned by its own effect. Even if your opponent got rid of it, even if your opponent gets rid of your Token Collector, you can just bring it back the next time they try to Rite of Aramesia. It's like they'd have to literally sit there and banish it. Second off, it is a floodgate, which I forgot to mention. Like Token Collector is a floodgate. So it pops all tokens on summon. So when they summon a token, you summon Token Collector. Token Collector pops all tokens on summon, and they can't summon any more tokens while it's face up on the field. So if they're playing Sword Soul, they might as well scoop unless they have the 10E shit. Boxia does shuffle cards on the field back into deck, so Boxia would also stop Token Collector as well. But at the same time, Token Collector is so easy to bring out. If you do have the Beatrice, your Beatrice can just put Token Collector back in grave. So if you're playing more than one Token Collector in your side deck, Beatrice can mill it twice. Like once during your turn, once during your opponent's turn. Like normally what Virtual World players are doing now is they're using Beatrice during their turn to mill something, Token Collector or Farfa to banish a card. So yeah, Token Collector has a lot of versatility as to how it can be used, and Sword Soul is still going to be relevant. Token Collector is going to be relevant. Maybe you won't be able to stop all of their plays if you Token Collector, because again, you're only stopping these first few cards. You can potentially ruin your opponent's strategy or make them more susceptible to negates if you do Token Collector them. So just be wary of that. Next is a fan favorite, competitive player favorite card. Evenly Matched can break pretty much any board if you mix it with a Dark Ruin or more or a drop layer. The reason why it's so much more significant when you're going against Adventurer Token is because tokens cannot be banished face down. So that means as long as they control the token, they would not have a choice as to what they get to keep on the field if you evenly match them. Let me break that down even further. When you activate Evenly Match, if they control any type of token, including the Adventurer Token, they cannot banish their token, which means their token will have to be the monster that they keep, or the one card that they keep on their field to fulfill evenly matched conditions. So it doesn't matter what other monster they have that's unaffected by card effects or whatever, all that shit still gets banished face down. The only thing they're allowed to keep is their Adventurer Token on field if you evenly match them. It's a lot scarier when you don't get to choose the card that you keep, right? And knowing that Griffin is so susceptible to removal when it attempts to negate something, can easily bait out Griffin and then evenly match your opponent for all the cards in their field, including the Fateful Adventurer, the Draco back, and whatever else they have set up during their turn. So evenly match is a really strong contender. Well, people are playing it anyway, but like just to make you guys aware, it's even stronger against Adventurer Token Engine than some may realize. So next we have Blizzard, which a card that I looked at first and I'm like, this is good. This is actually a good card. It just wasn't relevant enough last format because there are other ways to interact and to negate spell cards, but Blizzard just puts it all in one card and makes it really easy for you, right? So here we go. Target one face-up spell your opponent controls. This turn, negate the activated effects of that spell and all spells on the field with that same original name, right? If the targeted card will be sent to the opponent's graveyard this turn, it is added to their hand instead. It's like a mini red reboot for spell cards. It negates the activated effects. So unfortunately, Mystic Mine, it dodges another interruption yet again. But Blizzard can still stop the Rite of Aramesia from resolving because it's going to negate Rite of Aramesia and send it back to the hand, which means they don't get the token. The cool thing about Blizzard is that it doesn't negate the activation, it negates activated effects. So that means if it has if whatever spell card you negate says this card can only be used once per turn, they can't activate it again. Essentially, they don't get the token, so if they ended up drawing the Fateful Adventurer, if they ended up drawing the Griffin Rider or any bricks, this is only going to make their hand worse. It can even be used during your turn if they activate like a Twin Twister or something against you. Blizzard can be used during your turn to, bounce that shit back to the hand. Or if they have the Fateful Adventurer, you can use Blizzard on the Fateful Adventurer to stop them from searching. Griffin Rider, again, if you draw it turn 3, it's not completely dead. You draw it turn 1, you stop the Rite of Aramesia. I don't know how much of a tech card this is actually going to be. It has a lot of powerful matchups because, again, negating a spell card is pretty good. At the same time, it's like it doesn't stop everything. All depends on how you see it. It can stop a Droplet, it can stop a Dark Ruin or more. Well, it can stop Droplet if they don't drop a spell. It can stop a Triple Tactics, it can stop Raigeki. I think Blizzard is going to be a card that you're going to see more often, but try to use normal spell cards during your opponent's turn, and on your turn, try to use it on like quick play spells. Forbidden Droplet, obviously, no explanation needed, just negate Griffin Rider and whatever cards, and then whatever else board they established, Triple Tactics, or if Griffin Rider does resolve, you can draw 2, or you can do whatever, look at your opponent's hand. A lot of ways you can use. And lastly, Raigeki. Because Griffin Rider has to go back into deck, it doesn't mean Raigeki's going to resolve, but now that Raigeki's at 3, you can just monkey 2 Raigekis, clear their board, because one negate off Griffin Rider, then Raigeki number 2, what are they going to do? So this was the final archetype from Grand Creators. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for the support on the Exorcister and the Punk videos. We will go more into combo theory and deck practicality later on, but essentially, well, not combo theory, but actual combos, deck profiles, and all this type of stuff later on. But for now, this has been your boy Nistro of Well Played Games. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.